Hi, Luiza. So great to talk to you.
Amazing. Congrats on the movie, by the way. Amazing. Like, this is my type of thing. I was like, yes, psychological. Love it. So I got a few questions. You good to go?
Yes, of course.
Okay. First, I want to talk about the characters because Micah Moreau is like creepy fantastic in this one. So, what psychological traits did you ask her to bring to Polly?
Working with Micah is so incredible. We had, of course, like an amazing script to work from, but then, like she brings like so much process behind the character that has to do with like backstory, and she really wants to understand every decision her character does. It needs to come from somewhere. It's like, and then all of that, like becomes tangible in a way. And then also she's a kind of actress that thinks so much about her particular needs for the character, but also she really keeps an eye into the whole movie. Like she's always considering what is this gonna how is this gonna work for the scene, but also for the whole movie itself. So it was incredible to work with her, and I was very eager to see her in this other side of the palette, because she's usually a final girl, and it was just like all provoking the whole time. Like it was so incredible. Like she kept giving me goosebumps throughout the shoot.
Amazing. And the figure of the nanny has like so many archetypes. She's the caretaker, she's the intruder, the replacement, the obsessive. How did you work through these layers in Polly to create the idea of tricking the audience about her true intentions?
Like everything was very designed in terms of like who the character is, what happened to her, where does she come from, like what are her intentions, what is she hiding. So all of those answers we knew, she knew, I knew as well. So then like it kind of like we kind of walk away from like the original concepts of like the nanny, as you're saying. Like of course we knew we had that sandbox, we were playing into that place, but everything became so specific to our character, which was Polly, and she had a life of its own, and it was very interesting to see Micah transforming into her because there's such a different person. Micah is such a loving, caring person. So it was very incredible to see an actress of that level, embracing this kind of character and also giving love to a kind of character like that, which is kind of very interesting, like not judging a character like that. I think it's very important for it to really work.
Yeah, because this is a very like interesting story that I feel that it makes you get as insane as the characters as it goes. So how do you think that it was prevent somehow that Claire is not just a victim and Paul is not just the villain. It makes me really think about the depths of the intention. So, how do you think this film is allow both characters to just have that human complexity?
Yes, that's the other thing that I wanted to challenge, because I think there's a thing with like the genre of thrillers that many times we see a lot of representations of good and evil. And to me, it was very important to see like characters that were kind of like in those gray areas. And I feel like there's so many movies in the past with these kind of female characters that are kind of very flawed and contradictory. And I wanted to have that for this movie. And I fell in love, like, in the relationship between these two women, in the sense of like there's so much chemistry, and there's like a sensation that they both of them have been looking for each other their whole lives. So I guess like to me, like there was like so much that was challenging of the genre itself, and that had to do with like building complex characters that, where you could see both sides of the coin, and like the tendencies that could be either a victim but also a perpetrator in both of them.
Yeah, great. So, did you kind of like study any real life case of obsession or like the so-called dangerous nanny syndrome to as a reference, or is this something that really like trigger you to look up for? I don't know if you're into true crime, but like, was it something a little word that you dig into for this movie?
Really, but I guess like no, we didn't went into like real life cases or anything like that. But I guess like I love what you just said, like the idea of someone creeping into your life and wanting to take your home over, you know, that's to me is very macabre and sinister. And that's the kind of stories that I love to build, because they also hold like a very delicate and complex logic to them. So it was like a very delicate like craft, and like the way we woven it, like it was very layered, in order for it to be really scary and tense, we had to care for them, and I feel like that was like the important thing, that we started building from very interesting characters, and then from there I feel like that's why we feel tension and fear for them.
Absolutely. And like throughout the film, I feel there's some moments where the feel doesn't come from the violence, but like from the silence, a glance, or like a suggestion. Do you consider horror more effective when like it insinuates rather than reveals? And can you point like a scene where this was particularly clear?
100%. Like to me, I really love like how the movie's constructed in a like a slow burn way, you know? There's like still, even if it looks like there's nothing happening, and there's like two silent characters in a silent moment, you know, where it was pretty contained, there's so much going on below. And to me, that's the best kind of scenes, you know, where there you can feel the tension, and there's like, you know, you can feel like the cracks where all the steam is coming out. So for example, there's one scene that is pretty uncomfortable with like it involves a yellow sock. And I love that scene because I feel like there's so much going on, and there's a little bit of playfulness from one character, but then the other one responds in the most uncomfortable way possible. And it really gets to a point that it's pretty violent, but then it becomes like a paranoia, uh, like a event, like, you know, a paranoid event for the lead character, where you start seeing how she's not trusting her head anymore, and everything is so contained. There's very few words, and I'm super proud of those like little scenes that contain so much tension and like a feeling of dread in a way. Yeah.
Yes, sometimes I feel like even the comedy sometimes it makes you really uncomfortable. Like, what's going on? Like this is kind of tricky for me, right? So, how do you balance those type of emotions through the film? Because it's not always like tension. There's a bit of like breaths that you can take, but like it's still a creepy vibe. So, how do you balance the humor and maybe something more psychological about the couple? So, how's that work?
You know, like I love what you're saying, because yes, like we're dealing with like such a dark like story in a way. Like the themes below that I can't say them because it would be a spoiler, but they're pretty bleak. So to me, and that's also something that I've always loved, is like I feel like it's very important to carry like moments of breathing and levity, you know, and even comedy. And I had like the amazing participation of like Martin Starr, for example, and like even with like the baby that is in the movie, that she's like so interested, like so expressive. Like we have very good like relaxing moments where you can even take a laugh, you know. And I think that's really helpful. And it's like, to me, those are the kind of movies I love the most, you know, where you can be laughing, the next moment you're like terrified, and the next moment you're feeling extremely sad for what one character is going on, you know.
And by the way, great mention of the baby because I think it was one of the cutest little babies that I've ever seen on screen. Oh my god, like stole all the scenes. So,
I
and
know
you
they're twins.
met,
Actually, they're twins. They're Nora and Lola. They were
yeah,
incredible, and they were like very like, yeah, like following the eye line. I don't know, like little scream queens in a way. It was very fun.
amazing. And you mentioned that you avoid watching the 1992 film, not to be like influenced, and there's a lot of changes from that. So I want to know to wrap this up, what do you love? What do you hope that the longtime fans will embrace about this new version?
You know, I do watch the original like many times actually. I just, for a moment, when I started crafting this one, that's when I stopped watching it, because I feel like I really needed to honor this movie and build its own, you know, take care of it, you know, like it's its own project, and it really has so many needs and so many, like so much focus, you know, that it like it, you have to give it to it, you know. So I really, really hope the fans of the original movie are open to see this as a reimagining and not as a remake. The word remake to me is kind of like, that's not really how I see it. I don't think like this is a kind of movie that is just comparing itself to the original movie. The original movie is iconic and is legendary. And we really wanted to touch on new themes. Like this movie inspects a complete different theme than the original film, you know? And to me, that's like what gives like this film, this reimagining, an identity of its own. So I really hope they're open just to go through it, trying to forget the title, you know, and try to embrace it as a different movie too.
And it was amazing. I like it's a guarantee. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be a really tricky vibe, but it was awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle, for
Thank
the
you,
talk.
Luiza. I love your
Congratulations on the
question.
movie. I'm so
Thank
happy
you.
that you're a Latin director directing this movie. I'm so excited about it. So thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for your
much.
work.
Yeah, I
Thank
love
you.
talking with you. Bye bye.